The massive alien ship hung in space above Earth like a dark cloud, blocking out the sun. Its black metal surface stretched for miles, covered in strange symbols that seemed to glow with their own cold light. Captain Jake Murphy stood at the window of the space station, watching the ship with growing worry. He had never seen anything so big or so scary. "They're here for the meeting," said Lisa Carter, walking up beside him. She was Earth's top diplomat, the one who talked to aliens when they came to visit. Her face looked calm, but Jake could see the fear in her eyes. "What do they want this time?" Jake asked. He commanded Earth's space fleet, what little they had. Most of their ships were small and weak compared to what the aliens could build. Lisa shook her head. The message just said they had important business to discuss, nothing more. Jake turned away from the window. The alien ship made him feel sick just looking at it. Something was wrong. It was very wrong. In all his years dealing with aliens, he had learned to trust his gut feelings. Right now, his gut was screaming danger. The meeting room was cold and quiet when the aliens arrived. Their leader was tall and thin, with gray skin that looked like old leather. His eyes were completely black, like looking into empty space. He wore a long robe, covered in metal pieces that clinked when he moved. "I am Ambassador Vexstar of the Galactic Council," the alien said. His voice sounded like metal scraping against stone. "You will listen to what I say, and you will obey." Jake felt his hands turn into fists. Nobody talked to humans like that, not anymore. Lisa stepped forward with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Welcome, Ambassador. We're happy to meet. With the Council again? How can Earth help you today?" Vexstar made a sound that might have been laughing, but it sounded more like choking. "Help us, no human. You'll help yourselves by doing exactly what we tell you to do." The alien reached into his robes and pulled out a small device. They pressed something on it, and the air above the table began to glow. Pictures appeared, floating in the light like magic. But Jake knew it wasn't magic. It was technology that humans didn't have yet. The first picture showed Earth from space, looking beautiful and blue. Then the picture changed, showing Earth's cities from above. New York, London, Tokyo, all the big places where millions of people lived and worked. "Your planet is very pretty," Vexstar said, his black eyes staring at Jake and Lisa. "It would be sad if something happened to it." The next pictures made Jake's blood run cold. They showed alien weapons, huge guns that could destroy entire cities with one shot, ships full of soldiers ready to attack, bombs that could crack planets in half. "The Galactic Council has decided that humanity is becoming too dangerous," Vexstar continued. "You build weapons too fast. You learn too quickly. You ask too many questions. This cannot continue." Lisa's voice stayed steady, but Jake could hear the anger underneath. "What exactly are you saying, Ambassador?" "I am saying that humanity will do what we tell you to do, or we will make you do it." Vexstar waved his hand and new pictures appeared. These showed human ships being destroyed, human cities burning, human people running and screaming. Jake wanted to jump across the table and grab the alien by his ugly throat. Instead, he forced himself to stay calm. His getting angry now wouldn't help anyone. "Here are your orders," Vexstar said, like he was talking to children. "You will give us 80% of your military ships. You will shut down all your weapon research. We'll stop building new technology without our permission. You will accept council protection and do what we say, and if we refuse," Lisa asked quietly. Vexstar's mouth opened in what might have been a smile, showing teeth like broken glass. "Then we will destroy your major cities one by one until you change your minds. We have done this before with other young species. They all learn to obey in the end." The room went dead silent. Jake could hear his own heart beating. He could hear Lisa breathing beside him. He could hear the alien's robes rustling as he moved. "You have 72 hours to give us your answer," Vexstar said. "After that, we begin the bombing. We will start with New York City, then London, then Tokyo. We will keep going until you surrender, or until there is nothing left to surrender." The alien stood up, his tall body casting a shadow across the table. "Do not think about fighting us. Do not think about running away. We have ships watching every human colony. We have weapons you cannot imagine. We've done this 1,000 times before. Dexter walked toward the door, then stopped. Oh, and do not try to call for help from other species. Okay? They are all already under our protection. Learn to obey, just like you will. The door closed behind the aliens with a soft sound that seemed too quiet for such a terrible moment. Jake and Lisa sat in silence for a long time. Finally, Lisa spoke. They think we're like all the others, she said. Jake nodded slowly. They think we'll roll over and give up. They think fear will make us weak. They think wrong. Lisa looked at Jake with eyes that had gone from scared to hard as steel. What do we do? Jake stood up and walked back to the window. The alien ship was still there, still blocking out the sun. But now when he looked at it, he didn't feel scared anymore. He felt something else. Something that made him smile. We give them an answer they'll never forget, he said. Outside, Earth looked peaceful and quiet. But deep below the oceans, in hidden places the aliens couldn't see, other things were stirring. Things that had been waiting for this moment. Things that would teach the Galactic Council what it really meant to threaten humanity. The 72-hour countdown had begun. The emergency meeting started 30 minutes after the aliens left. Admiral Kate Sullivan walked into the secure room deep under the Pentagon, her boots clicking on the metal floor. General Ryan Brooks was already there, along with Jake Murphy and Lisa Carter. Their faces looked grim in the bright lights. How long do we have? Kate asked, sitting down at the table. Like 68 hours and counting, Jake said, checking his watch. They want our answer before then, or they start bombing. City's Ryan Brooks leaned back in his chair. He was a big man with gray hair and scars on his hands from old battles. They picked the wrong species to threaten. Kate nodded. Time to show them what Project Deepwater has been building. Lisa looked confused. Project Deepwater? I've never heard of that? That's the point, Kate said with a small smile. For the last 15 years, we've been preparing for this exact situation. We knew that someday somebody would try to force humanity to kneel. Jake stood up and walked to a wall. Screen, he pressed some buttons, and the screen came to life, showing a map of Earth. But this wasn't any normal map. This one showed things hidden under the oceans, buried in mountains, and floating in space, where nobody could see them. The aliens think they know everything about our military, Jake said, pointing at the screen. They've been watching us for years, counting our ships, measuring our weapons. What they don't know is that everything they've seen is just for show. The map zoomed in on the Pacific Ocean. Deep under the water, huge shapes appeared on the screen. They looked like cities, but cities built for war. Underwater shipyards, Kate explained. We've been building ships down there for over a decade. The aliens can't see through all that water, and their sensors can't detect our new metal. General Brooks pressed another button. The map changed to show the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. Dozens of rocks were highlighted in red. We hollowed out asteroids and turned them into military bases, he said. Each one has enough firepower to level a continent. The aliens think they're just space rocks. Lisa stared at the screen with her mouth open. How many people know about this? About 300 on the entire planet, Kate said. We've kept it secret for 15 years. Every president since then has known, but almost nobody else. Jake changed the screen again. This time it showed something that made Lisa gasp. Floating in space near the moon were hundreds of ships, but they weren't visible to normal eyes. Looked like empty space, like nothing was there at all. Stealth technology, Jake said proudly. We cracked the secret of bending light around objects. These ships are completely invisible unless you know exactly where to look. Ryan stood up and walked to another part of the room. He pressed his hand against what looked like a blank wall, and a hidden door opened. Inside was a smaller room filled with screens and computers. Dr. Alex Wright, come say hello, Ryan called. A thin man with messy hair and thick glasses walked out of the hidden room. His clothes were wrinkled like he had been working for days without sleep. Alex has been leading our weapons research. Kate said, show them what you've been building. Alex smiled nervously and walked to the main screen. Pressed some buttons and new pictures appeared. These showed weapons that looked like they came from science fiction movies. We've been studying alien technology for years, Alex said, his voice excited. Every time they visited, every trade deal, every diplomatic meeting, we learned something new. They thought they were studying us, but we were studying them. Screen showed a weapon that could turn matter into pure energy, another that could make objects disappear and reappear somewhere else, a third that could control gravity itself. The aliens have no idea we've figured out how their technology works, Alex continued. We've improved on their designs and built weapons they can't even imagine. Lisa looked around the room at all the screens and hidden doors. This is incredible. But how did you keep it secret for so long? Kate smiled. We learned from history. During World War II, humans kept huge secrets from their enemies. We just did the same thing, but better. Every military base the aliens can see is fake, Ryan added. All our visible ships are old and weak on purpose. We wanted them to think we were helpless. Jake pointed to another screen that showed news. Broadcasts from around the world. Our leaders are making speeches about accepting alien protection. The news is reporting that our military is powering down. It looks like we're giving up. But it's all theater, Kate said. Every word is planned to make the aliens think they've won. Dr. Alex pulled up another screen showing the alien ship. Still hanging over Earth, they're monitoring all our communications. They're watching our military bases. They think they know everything that's happening. What they don't know, Ryan said, with a dangerous smile, is that our real military has been waiting underwater, underground, and in space for 15 years. Lisa shook her head in amazement. So when they gave us 72 hours? ... They gave us 72 hours to put our people in position, Jake finished. Commander Beth Taylor is already moving our stealth ships into place around their fleet. Kate pressed a button on her communicator. Beth, report. A woman's voice came through the speaker, calm and professional. Admiral, we have 47 stealth ships surrounding the alien fleet. They have no idea we're here. How close are you? Close enough to count the rivets on their hull. They're sitting ducks. Ryan laughed, a sound like thunder. The aliens. Think they're the hunters, and we're the prey. They have no idea that we've been hunting them since the moment they arrived. Jake looked at his watch again. 66 hours left. Time to move our ocean platforms into position. Already done, Kate said. Captain Steve Mason has been waiting for this order for 3 years. His battle platform is ready to surface on your command. Lisa stood up slowly, still trying to understand everything she had learned. So, when the 72 hours are up, ... When the 72 hours are up, Kate said, her eyes bright with anticipation. We're going to give the Galactic Council a lesson they'll never forget. We're going to show them what happens when you threaten humanity, Ryan added. Jake looked at the screen showing the alien ship. They wanted to see Earth's military power. Tomorrow, they're going to get their wish, the countdown continued. But now Jake wasn't worried. The aliens thought they had 72 hours to watch humanity surrender. They actually had 72 hours left to live. Admiral Kethmer stood on the bridge of his massive warship, looking down at the blue planet below. Earth looked so small and helpless from up here. His fleet of 3,000 ships surrounded the planet like a net of death. Soon the humans would learn what happened to species that refused to obey the Galactic Council. Admiral, said his communications officer, a short alien with purple skin. The 72 hours are almost up. Should we prepare the weapons? Kethmer nodded slowly. He had done this many times before with other young species. They always fought at first, then begged, then surrendered. Humans would be no different. Open a channel to the entire galaxy, he ordered. Let everyone watch as we teach humanity their place. The screen in front of him lit up, showing his own face reflected back. He knew that billions of aliens across the galaxy were watching, waiting to see the famous human pride finally broken. Begin transmission, his officer said. Kethmer straightened his uniform and smiled. People of the galaxy, today you will witness the Council's justice. The humans have refused our generous offer of protection. Now they will learn the price of defiance. He turned to look at Earth again. Humans of Earth, your time is up. Surrender now, or we will turn your cities into ash. For a moment, nothing happened. Space was quiet and still. Then the communication screen flickered and changed. Instead of Kethmer's face, it now showed a human sitting in what looked like an office. The human was older, with gray hair and calm eyes. "I am President Dan Foster," the human said, his voice steady and clear. "You wanted our answer, Ambassador Vexter?" "Here it is." Kethmer frowned. Where was the fear? Where was the begging? This human looked like he was having a normal conversation, not facing the destruction of his entire species. "Our answer," President Foster continued with a small smile, "is no." Kethmer laughed out loud. "Foolish human. You have signed your own death warrant. All ships, prepare to fire on the capital city." But before he could give the order to attack, something strange started happening. The ocean below them began to move in ways that oceans shouldn't move. The water started to rise up in huge columns, like reverse waterfalls reaching toward space. "What is that?" Kethmer demanded, staring at the screen. His sensor officer, a tall alien with 4 arms, was pressing buttons frantically. "Sir, I'm reading massive energy signatures coming from under the water. Something big is moving down there." The water columns grew higher and higher, and then something incredible happened. Huge metal structures began to rise from the depths of the ocean. They were bigger than anything Kethmer had ever seen, bigger than his own flagship, bigger than entire cities. "Battle platforms," whispered his weapons officer. "Those are battle platforms." The massive structures kept rising until they floated above the ocean like metal islands. Weapons the size of buildings pointed up toward the Council fleet. Energy shields flickered to life around each platform, creating domes of light that hurt to look at. "How many?" Kethmer asked, his voice no longer confident. "Counting now, sir." "I see. 12. No, 15. Sir, there are 23 battle platforms rising from the oceans." But that wasn't the end of it. Growing horror, the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter began to light up like a festival. Rocks that had been floating in space for millions of years suddenly came alive with lights and weapons. "Those aren't asteroids," his sensor officer said, his voice shaking. "They're military bases, hundreds of them." Kethmer felt his stomach drop. How did we not see this? "Sir, they were completely hidden. Our sensors showed nothing but empty space and rocks." The president's face was still on the screen, still smiling that calm, terrible smile. "You wanted to see Earth's military might, Admiral. Take a good look. Then the most frightening thing of all happened. Space itself began to change. Areas of empty blackness started to shimmer and twist, and suddenly ships appeared out of nowhere. Sleek black vessels that seemed to bend light around them materialized all around the Council fleet. "Stealth ships," Kethmer breathed. "Here the whole time." His tactical officer was counting frantically. "Sir, I'm reading over 800 human ships. They're surrounding us on all sides." 800? Kethmer couldn't believe it. "That's impossible. We've been watching Earth for years. They only had 50 ships. The 50 ships you saw were decoys," President Foster said, as if he could. "Hear their conversation. We've been building our real fleet where you couldn't see it." Captain Steve Mason's voice came over the communication channel. He was standing on the bridge of one of the massive ocean platforms. And behind him, Kethmer could see weapons that defied understanding. "Admiral Kethmer," Steve said politely, "you're surrounded. Fleet is outnumbered 3-1, and our weapons are far more advanced than anything you have." Kethmer looked around his bridge. His officers were staring at their screens in shock. The human fleet wasn't just bigger than his own, it was positioned perfectly. Every Council ship was trapped with human vessels above, below, and on all sides. "This is impossible," Kethmer said. "You're a young species. You barely discovered space travel." "We discovered it," said another human voice. This one belonged to a woman standing on the bridge of one of the stealth ships. "But we also discovered something else. We discovered that the best way to deal with bullies is to be ready for them." Commander Beth Taylor smiled at him from her ship's screen. You really think we would just roll over and surrender? Did you think we wouldn't prepare for this day?" President Foster leaned forward in his chair. "For 15 years we've been watching you, Admiral, learning from you. Every time you visited, every trade agreement, every diplomatic meeting, we studied your technology and made it better." Dr. Helen Parker appeared on another screen, speaking from a research station near the moon. "Your weapons are 500 years old, Admiral. Our weapons were built last week. using science you can't understand. Kethmer realized that his fleet, which had seemed so powerful just minutes ago, was now completely helpless. The humans had turned the tables so completely that his ships might as well have been made of paper. "You cannot do this," he said, but his voice sounded weak even to himself. "The Council will not allow it." "The Council," President Foster said, his smile growing wider, "is about to learn that humanity doesn't ask for permission." Around the planet, human ships moved into final positions. The trap was complete, and the Council fleet was caught like fish in a net. The hunters had become the hunted, and there was nowhere left to run. Captain Steve Mason stood on the bridge of his battle platform, looking up at the Council fleet trapped above Earth. The massive alien ships that had seemed so threatening just hours ago now looked small and helpless against the backdrop of human military might. "Admiral Kethmer," Steve said into his communicator, his voice calm and professional. "You wanted to see a demonstration of power. We're going to give you one." On the main screen, the alien admiral's face had gone pale. His black uniform was soaked with sweat, and his hands shook as he gripped the sides of his command chair. "What are you going to do?" Kethmer asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Steve smiled, but it wasn't a kind smile. "We're going to show you what happens when you threaten innocent people. But don't worry, Admiral. We're not like you. We don't kill unless we have to." He turned to his weapons officer, a young woman named Amy Rodriguez, who had been waiting for this moment her entire career. "Colonel Rodriguez, target the dead moon in the outer system. The one with no life, no resources, nothing important." "Target locked, Captain." "Ready, fire," Steve said simply. What happened next changed everything the galaxy thought they knew about warfare. The human weapon didn't just destroy the moon. It didn't just blow it apart or turn it into rocks. The weapon reached out across millions of miles of space and touched the dead moon with invisible fingers of pure energy. The moon began to glow. First just a little, like a candle in the dark. Then brighter, like a star. Then so bright that even the aliens' advanced sensors couldn't look directly at it. "What is that weapon?" Kethmer demanded, staring at his screens in horror. "Dr. Helen?" Parker answered from her research station. She was a small woman with gray hair and eyes that sparkled with intelligence. "It's called a matter converter, Admiral. It changes solid matter directly into energy with perfect efficiency." The light spread outward, washing over the alien ships and lighting up the entire solar system. Every planet, every asteroid, every piece of space dust was suddenly visible in the brilliant glow. "You turned an entire moon into a sun," whispered Kethmer's sensor officer. "We turned it into energy," Helen corrected. "Pure, clean energy. Just light and heat that will fade away in a few hours." Steve watched the alien admiral's face change as he understood what he was seeing. This wasn't just a weapon. This was science so advanced that it looked like magic of the universe, and learned to change one into the other at will. "That moon was the same size as your home planet," Steve said quietly. "Think about that for a moment." Colonel Amy Rodriguez left her weapons station and walked to the center of the bridge. She was young, maybe 25 years old, with short, black hair and the confident walk of someone who had never lost a fight. "Permission to launch fighters, Captain?" "Granted, Colonel." "Show our guests what human pilots can do." Amy pressed a button on her wrist communicator. "All fighter wings. This is Colonel Rodriguez. Time to dance." From hidden bays all around the human fleet, small ships began to pour out like angry bees from a hive. But these weren't ordinary fighters. As the alien sensors tried to track them, the human ships began to do impossible things. One fighter simply vanished from the middle of space and reappeared behind an alien battleship. Another seemed to stretch and bend, moving faster than light should allow. A third started flying in circles around a council ship, but the circles were getting smaller even though the fighter wasn't slowing down. How are they doing that? Asked, watching his tactical display try to make sense of what it was seeing. Amy's voice came over the communication channel from her fighter cockpit. We learned to bend space, Admiral. Time and distance don't work the same way for us anymore. Her ship demonstrated by flying straight through what looked like solid space. Where her fighter passed, reality twisted and folded, creating a tunnel that closed behind her. Wormhole generation, explained Dr. Helen Parker. We can create temporary holes in space that let us travel anywhere instantly. Another human pilot, flying a fighter that seemed to be made of liquid metal, showed off a different trick. His ship split into 5 identical copies, each one perfectly real and solid. Matter duplication, Helen continued, like she was giving a science lesson to children. We can copy anything we want, as many times as we want. The alien fleet tried to move, tried to respond to the human fighters dancing around them. But they were too slow and too primitive. Every time a council ship tried to turn, human fighters were already where they wanted to go. Every time they tried to fire their weapons, the humans were somewhere else. This is impossible, Kethmer said, his voice breaking. Physics doesn't work this way. Your physics don't work this way, corrected Captain Steve Mason. We've been studying the universe for 15 years while you thought we were playing with sticks and stones. One of the human fighters, piloted by a man named Tony Garcia, flew his ship directly at the hull of Kethmer's flagship. The alien crew braced for impact, but instead of crashing, the fighter passed through the metal like it was made of air. Molecular phase shifting, Helen explained cheerfully. We can make our ships exist slightly outside normal reality. Solid. Matter can't touch us when we don't want it to. Tony's fighter reappeared on the other side of the alien ship, completely undamaged. He had flown through an entire battleship without even slowing down. Stop, Kethmer whispered. Please stop. The human fighters immediately froze in place, hovering motionless around the alien fleet. The demonstration was over, but the message was clear. The Council's most advanced warships were toys compared to what humanity had built. Steve. Mason looked directly at the alien admiral through the communication screen. Now, do you understand, Admiral? We didn't just build bigger guns. We rewrote the laws of science itself. Kethmer stared at the glowing remains of what had been a moon, at the human fighters that could appear and disappear at will, at the weapons that could erase matter from existence. What do you want? He asked, his voice hollow with defeat. Steve's smile was cold as winter. We want you to listen very carefully, Admiral, because now it's our turn to make demands. Admiral Kethmer sat in his command chair like a man waiting for his own execution. Round him, his bridge crew stared at their screens in stunned silence. The human fleet surrounded them completely, weapons pointed at every council ship. There was nowhere to run and nowhere to hide. President Dan Foster appeared on the main communications screen, sitting calmly in his office as if nothing unusual had happened. Behind him, through the window, Kethmer could see the glow from the moon that humans had just erased from existence. Admiral President Foster said, his voice polite but firm. I think it's time we discussed new arrangements. What arrangements? Kethmer asked, though he already knew his position was hopeless. Foster leaned back in his chair. The same kind you offered us, but in reverse. You're going to listen to our terms, and you're going to accept them. Secretary of Defense Paul Chen stepped into view beside the president. He was a tall man with sharp eyes and the bearing of someone who had spent his life planning for war. First, Paul said, reading from a tablet in his hands, the Galactic Council is dissolved, effective immediately. You cannot dissolve the Council. We have ruled this galaxy for 10,000 years. You've bullied this galaxy for 10,000 years, corrected Admiral Kate Sullivan, appearing on another screen. That ends today. Second, Paul continued, all Council military forces will stand down and return to their home systems immediately. Any attempt to threaten or attack developing species will be met with swift response from Earth's protection fleet. Protection. Fleet. Kethmer laughed bitterly. You mean conquest fleet? President Foster shook his head. No, Admiral, we mean protection. Like the Council, we don't force species to join us. Admiral, we have your homeworld on our scanners. Beautiful planet. Lots of cities, lots of innocent people. Kethmer's blood turned to ice. We wouldn't dare attack civilians. We're not going to attack anyone, Tony said calmly. We're just showing you that we could if we wanted to. Your homeworld is exactly 47 minutes away from our nearest battle group. On Kethmer's tactical display, new contacts appeared around his species' home planet. Human ships, dozens of them, all invisible until this moment. They had been there all along, waiting. How long have your ships been watching our worlds? Kethmer asked. Since the day we first met your people, Admiral Sullivan answered. We've had ships positioned near every council homeworld for 5 years. You never knew we were there. Major Susan Clark appeared on another screen. She was a young woman with red hair and the confident smile of someone who enjoyed her work. We've been mapping your entire military structure, Admiral. We know where every base is, every ship, every weapon facility. Third, Paul Chen continued reading from his list. All species currently under Council protection will be given a choice. They can join Earth's new alliance as equal partners, or they can remain independent. No one will be forced to do anything. If they choose independence, Kethmer asked. Then they get independence, President Foster said simply. We protect them from anyone who tries to take it away, including you. Kethmer looked around his bridge at his frightened officers. What about us? What happens to the Council species? That depends on you, Admiral Sullivan said. Species that want to join the new alliance and follow the rules are welcome? Commander Beth Taylor's stealth ship decloaked right next to Kethmer's flagship, so close that he could see her face through the bridge windows. We're not conquerors, Admiral. We're teachers. We're going to teach this galaxy what freedom actually means. Fourth, Paul read, the Council's protection taxes are abolished immediately. No species will pay tribute to anyone for the right to exist. Those taxes funded galactic peace, Kethmer protested weakly. Those taxes funded galactic oppression, President Foster corrected. Real peace doesn't need to be bought with fear. Dr. Helen Parker joined the conversation from her research station. We've studied your economic records, Admiral. The Council has been stealing from developing species for centuries. That's over now. How will you maintain order without the Council? Kethmer asked. The same way humans have always maintained order, said Captain Steve Mason from his ocean platform. By standing up to bullies and protecting those who can't protect themselves. Fifth and final, Paul said, looking directly at Kethmer. Any former Council member who continues to threaten, attack, or oppress other species will face the full military might of Earth's alliance. We have very long memories, Admiral, and we don't give second chances to those who hurt innocent people. Human weapons pointed at his homeworld, human technology that could erase planets from existence. The tables had turned so completely that he felt dizzy. You're making us prisoners in our own space, he said. No, President Foster said firmly. We're making you equals in a free galaxy. You can trade, explore, build, create, do whatever you want. It's the only thing you can't do anymore is hurt people. And if we refuse these terms, the President's expression hardened. Then you'll discover that humans can be far more creative in their responses than the Council ever was. We prefer cooperation, Admiral, but we're very good at other things too. Admiral Sullivan leaned forward on her screen. The choice is yours, Admiral. You can be part of a free galaxy, or you can be a cautionary tale. But either way, the age of Council domination is over. Kethmer looked at his tactical display one more time. 3,000 Council ships, surrounded by 800 human vessels that could do impossible things. His homeworld watched by invisible guardians. His entire military structure mapped and monitored. He had come to Earth to make humanity kneel. Instead, humanity had made the entire galaxy stand up. I need to speak with the other Council members, he said quietly. You have 1 hour, President Foster said. After that, we start implementing the new order with or without your cooperation. The screens went dark, leaving Kethmer alone with his thoughts and the terrible knowledge that everything had changed forever. 6 months had passed since the day the Galactic Council learned what it meant to threaten humanity. Admiral Jake Murphy, now promoted to Fleet Admiral, stood on the observation deck of Earth's newest space station, watching ships from a dozen different species work together in the orbital shipyards. "Hard to believe how much has changed," said Admiral Kate Sullivan, joining him at the window. Below them, a Zeltharian transport ship was being escorted safely to port by human patrol vessels. "The Council species adapted faster than I expected," Jake replied, watching the alien ship dock without any fear or hostility. Most of them, anyway. The former Council members had faced a simple choice after that day 6 months ago. Join the new Galactic Alliance as equal partners, or find themselves isolated and powerless in a universe that no longer feared them. Most had chosen wisely. Major Susan Clark walked into the observation lounge, carrying a tablet full of reports. The organization that kept developing worlds, safe from predators. "Latest numbers," she said, setting the tablet on the table. 47 former Council species have joined the Alliance. Why you chose to remain independent but friendly? Only 3 are still causing trouble. "What kind of trouble?" Kate asked. "Korthok Empire tried to invade the developing worlds last month," Susan said with a slight smile. "Commander Tony Garcia's rapid response team convinced them to reconsider." Jake chuckled. "How much convincing did it take?" Tony appeared in orbit around their capital planet with 50 stealth ships and asked politely if they wanted to discuss the situation. They decided to withdraw immediately. Through the window, they watched a small ceremony taking place on one of the docking platforms. Signing his species alliance agreement, he looked much different now, humbler and more respectful. "He's actually not a bad diplomat when he's not trying to intimidate people," Kate observed. "Fear makes people stupid," Jake said. "Once the Zeltharians realized we weren't going to hurt them, they became quite reasonable." Dr. Helen Parker's voice came over the station's communication system. "Admiral Murphy, please report to the research center. We have something exciting to show you." The 3 officers made their way through the station's corridors, passing humans and aliens working side by side. The fear and suspicion that had marked human-alien relations for years had largely disappeared, replaced by genuine cooperation. Helen was waiting for them in the main laboratory, practically bouncing with excitement. Around her, alien and human scientists worked together on projects that would have been impossible under the old Council system. "What's got you so excited?" Jake asked. "We've had a breakthrough in medical technology," Helen said, leading them to a large screen showing complex diagrams. "Working with Catharian healers and Andromedon biotechnology experts, we've developed a treatment that can cure most genetic diseases." "That's incredible," Susan said, studying the data. "How long before it's ready?" "We're already distributing it to worlds that need it most," Helen replied. "Free of charge, of course. No species should suffer when we have the power to help." Kate shook her head in amazement. The old Council would have used technology like this as a weapon, forcing species to pay for their own survival. "The old Council is gone," said a familiar voice from behind them. President Dan Foster walked into the laboratory, followed by Secretary of Defense Paul Chen. Both men looked tired but satisfied. "How was the Galactic Assembly meeting?" Jake asked. "Productive," Dan replied. "We've officially established the new charter for galactic civilization. Free trade, open science sharing, protection for developing worlds, and strict rules against oppression." Paul pulled up another screen, showing a map of the galaxy. Green areas marked alliance members, blue showed independent but protected worlds, and small red dots indicated the few remaining problem species. "The protection network is working better than we hoped," Paul said. "Captain Steve Mason's ocean platforms can respond to threats anywhere in the galaxy within hours." "What about the species that still refuse to cooperate?" Susan asked, pointing at the red dots. "They're learning," Dan said with a slight smile. "The Vorthan Collective tried to resume their slave raids last week. They found Commander Beth Taylor's stealth fleet waiting for them." "Did they fight?" Kate asked. "No," Paul chuckled. "Beth just surrounded their entire raiding party and asked if they really wanted to test human resolve. They decided they didn't." Jake looked out through the laboratory windows at the bustling space lanes around Earth. Ships from hundreds of worlds traveled freely, no longer afraid of council taxes or arbitrary restrictions. "Any word from the Outer Rim territories?" he asked. 3 more developing species have requested protection status this month, Susan reported. They heard about the alliance and want our help against local pirates and warlords. Grant it. Dan said immediately. Every species deserves the chance to grow and thrive without fear. Dr. Alex Wright joined the group, emerging from a secured research area. His hair was still messy, but he looked much happier than he had during the crisis 6 months ago. We can now travel between any 2 points in the galaxy in under 6 hours. That means we can protect anyone, anywhere, almost instantly, Paul realized. That's the idea, Alex said proudly. No more isolated worlds suffering in silence while help is weeks away. The communication system, they heard the voice of Admiral Kethmer. The former Council Fleet Commander now served as a junior liaison officer, helping to coordinate between the old Council species and the new alliance. Admiral Murphy, Kethmer's voice said, much more respectful than it had been 6 months ago. The Centaurian delegation has arrived for the cultural exchange program. Thank you, Admiral, Jake replied. It still felt strange to be giving orders to someone who had once threatened to destroy Earth's cities. As the group prepared to leave the laboratory, Ellen called out one more piece of news. Oh, and the terraforming project for the Rigelian refugees is ahead of schedule. They'll have their new homeworld ready in 3 months instead of 6. The Rigelians lost their planet to a council mining operation 50 years ago, Susan explained to Jake. We're giving them a better world than the one they lost. President Foster looked around at his people, then out at the galaxy beyond. 6 months ago, the council tried to make humanity kneel through fear and violence. Instead, they gave us the chance to show the galaxy what real strength looks like. Protecting instead of conquering, Kate added. Building instead of destroying, Paul continued. Teaching instead of threatening, Susan finished. Jake watched another ship dock at the station, this one carrying supplies for a developing world that had never known safety before. The galaxy was still full of challenges, but for the first time in 10,000 years, it was also full of hope. The council wanted to show us our place in the galaxy, Jake said quietly. Turns out our place was at the top, not as conquerors, but as guardians. In the distance, human patrol ships moved through space lanes that were now free and safe for all. The age of fear was over. The age of protection had begun, and humanity stood watch over it all, ensuring that no species would ever again have to kneel before bullies who mistook cruelty for strength. The galaxy had learned what happened when you threatened humanity. Now it was learning something even more important. What happened when humanity decided to protect you?